Hello! In this video I'll talk about the pros and cons of growing indoors versus outdoors. I've had a lot of experience growing my plants outdoors, and now I have some perspective. Let's go! Well, some people may say that a con of growing indoors is that your Venus flytraps aren't getting the amount of sunlight they need. But we've already busted this myth. If you dial in your setup, your plants will be just as healthy, if not more healthy, than the plants outdoors. Another topic someone might mention as a con for growing indoors is the food. Nom 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 nom. As you know, Venus flytraps like to bite the butts of bugs. You could see it as a con, the fact that your Venus flytraps aren't outside and access to that endless buffet of bugs. But I'd say that Venus flytraps don't need to be fed as often as people might think they do. And yes, there are alternate ways of feeding your Venus flytraps indoors. You can also just give them a bug here and there. One thing I'd say is a con of growing your Venus flytraps indoors is that outdoors, the sun's rays has UV radiation that'll kill certain things that could grow on the surface of your soil, or at the very least keep them regulated. When your plants are growing indoors, and let's say you have a peat-heavy soil, and your soil is always very wet, there's a chance you could grow some unsightly but pretty harmless mold on the surface of your soil, which you could just pick off, of course. Things like mold and algae are just quite unsightly. But I've noticed that briefly with my plants, but then that was only a brief moment, a brief period of time before I didn't have a problem with them anymore. And it wasn't like it was overgrowing the surface of my plants. It was just a little bit here and there. And one thing that may have helped me out is that I like to grow with very sandy soils. But I do believe it's not really purely that, because I have a few plants here still growing in 100% pure peat moss, so. Now, a con someone might mention about growing your Venus flytraps indoors, which is actually secretly not a con, is that we all know that Venus flytraps need a dormancy period. That is, a period during the colder months where they go to sleep and they don't produce many prey-catching leaves so that they can store up their energy for the next growing season. Now, I and another friend of mine are finding that this isn't necessarily necessary. If your indoor plants are getting plenty of energy, that would be from, intense lighting and, here and there some good food, they won't mind not having dormancy. But shh, don't tell the people who are convinced they need it that. We like it when they hate us. Now, a big plus for me when it comes to growing my Venus flytraps indoors is that I get to look at them as often as I want. I get to wake up and see them as soon as I open my eyes. I used to grow all my Venus flytraps outdoors on my windowsill, and yeah, they had plenty of sunlight and were very happy and very healthy. And I got to walk around town knowing that I had very beautiful Venus flytraps at home. But I couldn't look at them as often as I wanted to. Here and there I would open my window and look at them closely, but it wasn't the same as having them right in front of me all the time. When I was a little kid, I really loved my Venus flytraps, and when I looked at them in pots, I would imagine them being on the ground out in the wild. So now that my plants are indoors, I get to see that all the time. I get to look at my plants and imagine them being right there on the ground out in the wild. They feed me, What's the use in growing my plants if I can't look at them all the time? I do enjoy how rugged it is outside for Venus flytraps, because I believe tough conditions breed tough individuals, whether it be with humans or with plants, just the same. And I try to echo that sentiment with my plants indoors, for example, not babying them, and allowing them to experience the full range of moisture in their soil, from being below water level flooded to being on the brink of dryness. I think they respond pretty well to it. Another con of growing Venus flytraps in your room is that some of your friends are going to be quite jealous with you. They may even develop a villain arc. Who can blame them? The purpose of this video is not to convince you to choose one or the other, but to erase the fear of growing Venus flytraps indoors. It's definitely attainable. It's not just attainable, it's waiting for you to do it. That's how I look at goals. If you want to see some pictures of my old Venus flytraps I grew outside, I can show those to you right now. At some point, I think my home will be buried in Venus flytraps. I'll have a lot growing indoors, and then I'll have some growing outdoors too. That way I can see some everywhere I look. So yeah, don't be afraid. Grab yourself a plant, make that plant happy, and it'll give you more plants. It's always nice to make something happy. Alright, you will see me again. I promise you. I can't get to sleep. I think about the implications of diving in too deep, and possibly the complications